Hey, business building warrior. Welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. I'm your host, Jim Cockrum. I've got a great guest today. You're going to really enjoy this interview. I'll bring her on the show in just a moment, but I want to tell you a few announcements first, tell you what to expect, some of the high-level topics we covered, and then we'll dive in and get to know Renee Siddel. You're going to enjoy this one. Okay, so a couple things important. I talked to Renee on the episode today, and she is coming in July to our conference. You need to join us along with dozens of other guests that you've heard on this podcast, along with dozens of coaches from our team, hundreds of members of our community who listen to this show. Maybe they're in our free Facebook group, the students of the Proven Amazon course, which, by the way, is the one thing that we all have in common. We launched our successful e-commerce businesses using the training modules from the Proven Amazon course. It's got training for all levels. If you're brand new and don't know anything about selling online, there's modules for you. If you've got a $50,000 a month business on Amazon and you're wanting to scale up and grow, we've got modules for you on virtually every imaginable topic you can imagine or come up or dream up. It has to do with Amazon. It's in there, and we teach you what you need to know when you need to know it. And today's guest, Renee, has used those concepts along with a coach on our team, which you don't have to have a coach, but if you do, it's certainly going to shorten the learning curve and give you someone, as Renee describes today, that you can, a shoulder to cry on, someone to lean on, someone you can text and call, and you can have regularly scheduled sessions as well with someone who's built a beautiful business using the strategies we teach. That's who all of our coaches are, people who've been there, done that, and they have a teacher's heart. So that's what you're going to hear from Renee today. Our conference is coming up July 6th through 8th, the Proven Conference. Don't miss it. That's the website. You're going to hear me talk about it a lot. I apologize if I sound like I'm talking about it too much because we're just so excited about getting hundreds of people from this podcast listening audience together in person in Columbus, Ohio. So be there. Don't miss it. What else do we talk about today? She talks about trying to get her business out of her house. And we talk about some creative ideas in regards to not having to be the one that does all the prepping and shipping yourself. Her business is scaling, and she's only got one day a week that she can commit to this business and a few hours here and there in the evenings and weekends, but one day a week, that's it. So she's thinking, how can I automate and get some of this work off of my shoulders? We gave her some great ideas today as we talked through it. We have prep centers all over the United States, and those are great. And sometimes that's the solution people use, but there's other creative solutions to get the business out of your house without having to go to a prep center. We talk about some of those solutions today. I think you'll enjoy that part of the conversation. She also talks about the reality of having put this business down for a couple of years and then stepping back into it as the season of life and the opportunity opened up for her. So that was her reality. She bought the Proven Amazon course a few years ago, started to see some success, put it down. Life got busy, life got crazy. Then she picked it back up, got into coaching. Now she's building a beautiful business, and you'll hear all the details today on what she's selling, how she's finding it. She's using retail arbitrage strategies, which means she goes to retail stores and finds inventory based on the replens model that you hear us talking about so much. And she also uses online strategies, and we dive into what tools she's using and what strategies she uses there as well. So you're going to enjoy this conversation. Let's jump over. I think that's enough announcements for now and meet today's guest, Mrs. Renee Siddel. Enjoy. Renee, welcome to the program. Good to have you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me to be on the podcast. So it makes me, feel like I'm taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate everyone who's willing to share their story. And when you raised your hand and said you were willing, we took you up on it. This is fantastic. Looking forward to getting to know you. Let's jump into your story a little bit.
Okay. So I really haven't been selling on Amazon for a whole lot of time. Really back in 2019, my husband and I were kind of thinking we always are coming up with business ideas, but what else can I do? And so we kind of threw around the idea of opening up an e-commerce store, and that I would possibly also just go to trade shows and do things like that. So we actually took a trip to China to look at different products and things that were there. And shortly after we came back, then he went to CES, and he happened to run into Nathan Bailey again. So they were kind of talking just about his products on Amazon, et cetera. And then they went through kind of some of the other opportunities of coaching and stuff. And my husband dug into that a little bit and wanted to know more because he's like, this would be right up my wife's alley. Like, she's going to want to do this for sure. So he came home and we talked about it, and I was really interested, and then had a call with Nathan, and he was a little hesitant, I think, just because he said normally people are very like kind of familiar with our community. They know a little bit more, but I knew nothing about your community at all at that time. But he's like, if you really feel like you want to do this and you want to move forward and you want to put in the effort, I want it to be successful for you. And so I was like, yeah, I'm in. And
And
so
this was
I started
still
coaching.
2019, 2020?
This would have been, sorry, early 2020.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And I love what you're telling. I didn't know this part of your story, but it does point out something I want to mention just to clarify a couple things for the listeners today. You mentioned CES. That's what we used to call our conference. It's now the Proven Conference. Not a major point, but just making sure people are like, well, CES, what's that? Well, for the first several years we did our conference. We're coming up on year 11 now, theprovenconference.com. And that's the name we used to go by. And I love that you had a conversation with our coaching director, Nathan, who's been with me 19 years, by the way, if you didn't know that. Same coaching director for a very long time. We actually talk as many people out of coaching as we sell coaching. Because again, like he told you, we want you to be very qualified, familiar, confident. We want you to make a big commitment because we're making a big commitment to you. So I love that you remembered and that part of the conversation stood out to you because we do take that seriously. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It doesn't come up very often on the show that we take that very seriously.
Yeah.
But okay, so you had a call with our coaching director, Nathan. It's early 2020. Pick up the story. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then I started coaching with Larry Pruitt. I think I had my first session with Sue, and we just went over some things and then kind of jumped in, and he'd give me homework each week of what to do, and I loved it and I enjoyed it, and it was a great time because things sort of shut down at that time. That was when COVID occurred,
COVID
and
hit.
so I was working from home, which actually made things a lot easier for me to get them done as far as with Amazon. And then later in that year,
You had a
as
full-time job at the time. I apologize. I want to make
I
sure I
did,
understand. Okay, so you were
yes.
working your full-time, your real job, I'm using air quotes, and,
Yeah.
and squeezing Amazon in, but you were doing both from home early,
Yes.
mid 2020. Gotcha.
And then that changed later in the year. Then I had to go back to work. We decided to do some renovations in our house and move into a new home and renovations there. So it's just a lot came up, and I just dropped everything with
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah. Life
Um,
paused the whole business. Yep.
it did. And literally my sales went back down to zero before I picked it up again.
Right.
Um, but I did start back up in July of last year. So July of 2022. And I just said, I'm going to go back to work. So I'm basically working about 4 days a week now my full-time job requires a lot. So it's probably still 40 hours, but it's, I'm working about 4 days a week. And then I have Fridays typically is my day to focus on Amazon. And then I use, my weekends and evenings, things like that.
Gotcha. So you're working your real job, air quotes again, right? 4 days a
Yep.
week. And then 1 day a week is your Amazon.
Yep.
You do it all in 1 day. That's pretty intense.
Well, and then evenings and weekends.
You're squeezing in some extra hours here and there too. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
putting in as much time as I can. And then I did hire a VA
Right.
using the VAs that were trained by Kyle Curtis.
Yep.
And that has been just a blessing because there's no way I could even be where I'm at without her. But she started with me in the beginning of December, and it's been nice because we've been just a really good team. When I give her directive for something, she's able to follow through with it, and just very on top of things. She's so sweet and polite, and we have meetings every so often, and things are just working out really well with that. So I'm very appreciative that I was able to hire someone through that
That's
program.
awesome. Yeah, I love hearing that feedback for sure. It's a great program. Once you figure out the power of a virtual assistant and how much they contribute to your life and to your business, it's one of those things where you think, why didn't I do this sooner? Yeah, that's great. So good to hear it. All right, well,
And I
keep it going.
um, so yeah, that kind of brings me, to now I've increased her hours, slowly as needed. But right now I'm completely bogged down. I feel like with prepping and shipping, I've been doing all of that myself up until this point. And so my next step is I have to transition to using a prep center, because I am spending the majority of my time there. And I know it's just not the best use of my time then at that point.
So you're doing
So
all online sourcing for the most part.
I do both. I would say more is done online, but I also do go into stores
Mhm.
and look for products. A lot
Okay.
of times I'll just take pictures and then bring them home.
Do some
Um,
research.
yeah. And then other days, like I might go through a clearance aisle and kind of just see what's there too.
Mhm.
So yeah, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Well, because
Yeah.
when people say, wow, I'm busy prepping, I think it's time to get a prep center. Well, that may be the right answer. That may be part of the right answer. And you also may want to just find some local help. And especially true if you're doing retail arbitrage, finding local wins, because that's not going to be efficient for you to send all that to a prep center especially if they're far away in another state. Shopping online, it's easy enough to have it delivered anywhere. But if you've got retail stuff locally, you're still going to have to deal with some of that. So have you given thought to maybe hiring someone who's looking for a few extra hours a week to do the prep for you, maybe in their own house, that sort of thing?
I have thought about that. And I guess I have a few concerns that come with it is, and that makes a little more sense that you were saying you could take it to somebody else's house. I think that's not really something that had come across my mind,
Hmm.
because I was kind of thinking, well, if someone's coming over here, then I have to have this designated time to
Oh,
prep.
right.
And that might always be the time that works for me that week.
Hmm. No, it
So
doesn't have to be done in your own house.
yeah,
That we've seen people in our community even have a handful. Maybe it's a neighbor. You'll be shocked how many people will respond and raise their hand if you just put up a simple, like in your neighborhood Facebook group or the next door, I think app it's called, something like that, where there's people near you and you can just kind of say, hey, I'm looking for someone to work a few flexible hours per week. It involves shipping some products that I need shipped. Who would be willing to work for, $12 an hour, starting going up to 15 pretty fast kind of thing? I'll provide the supplies. You'll get a good number of people saying, wow, that's
okay,
perfect. A recently retired mom with time on her hands now that the kids are moved out. And, there's just the people that will raise their hand for that gig. And the thing I like about that is you're really keeping some local control over your business, which there's a lot of advantages to that. And as a transition point. Now, I love prep centers. I have a prep center. There's some great prep centers listed at prepcenternetwork.com. You can go see all of them. It's a free service we provide to the community, and I love to see them thrive. But when you're slowly scaling, I like to see baby steps instead of leaps. I think a good
okay,
baby step might be to explore that. And yeah, they don't have to come to your house. There's no reason they couldn't do it out of their own house. And
okay,
again, that's more cost effective. If you're using someone else's warehouse, there's a cost for that space. If someone else is using a spare room in their house, like they're not charging you any money for that. That's just, that's their business room. They come to your house once a week, pick it all up off your porch. You set it out the night before. They swing by at 6 in the morning, never even know they were there. Kind of, you can get those kind of arrangements rolling with friends, neighbors. You can even turn them into shoppers for you, perhaps. Okay, here's all the stuff I need to buy. Here's all my replens, and they go buy. And now you're saving yourself that time too. They're prepping it
great.
themselves.
Yeah,
They're taking it, and they can inspect it off the shelf, and they learn to look for the expiration dates or the crushed corners or whatever. And now you've got a shopper prepper. That's and that keeps you tapped in. I'm a huge fan of the RA stuff, and I won't go off too much longer before turning the microphone back to you, Renee. But I was talking to a very high level student in our community that's doing about $200,000 a month right now of RA and OA mixed, about equal, loves them both. Local retail arbitrage is every bit as viable and exciting as is online arbitrage. So I don't like to see people just completely abandon it for the convenience of having an OA only business, because it's just not that hard to have some RA rolling without it all coming to your house and filling up your dining room, right?
yeah.
Done.
And that has been the case.
Sure. And everyone starts there. But
Yeah.
then once you start seeing some real numbers, some commas and zeros, and man, this is viable. This could go somewhere. Hey, start using someone else's dining room and paying them a few dollars per hour to do some of that lifting. That's the
Okay.
ownership role that you kind of start to step into. Yeah, hopefully that
Yeah.
helps you as we brainstorm through this.
It does for sure, because I hadn't thought of that aspect of it, of really just having someone else pick it up and take it home. And then I don't have to be available at the same time when it might be
Right.
convenient for them. So
Absolutely. Give them the
that's
code to your
wonderful.
garage or whatever, or just have them go shop for it themselves and take it to their own house. Plenty of people will raise their hand for that type of work right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. I really appreciate that tip.
Yeah, good. I hope, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, that's really the point of where I'm at, is just kind of
Right.
feeling a little overwhelmed with things, and trying to keep up with all of it. So I think that would help to bring somebody else, into the picture, and
Mm-hmm.
have them help with the prep.
Mm-hmm.
And that would free up my time to do, more sourcing and more RA and be out there a little bit more.
Yep.
Um,
And now, what are your
and
numbers, if you don't mind?
yeah, right now, so like as far as sales per month.
Yeah, just throw whatever numbers you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, so January was a much bigger month, which was great. I had a really good month in January, but now I've leveled back down to about 12,000 in sales a month. And so I really feel like I'm kind of stuck there. And I think some of that is just, like I said, I need to outsource something else,
Yeah,
and get something else off my plate. And then as far as like return on investment, I'm at about 25% with a net of about 15.
gotcha. That's
So I
good.
know some people have quite a bit of higher numbers,
Mhm.
which is something I'm working on with my VA, just to try to work and find things that do have a higher ROI.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a matter of being a little pickier with
Hmm.
your investment, what money, where you put your money,
Yep.
and you've got a beautiful foundation that you can definitely build off of and go from here. And considering the time that you've had to put into this and the other work and responsibilities that you have, this is tremendous. That you've really built something great that can definitely scale to a much higher number fairly
Yes.
quickly.
And
So
and that
yeah,
is
well
for
done.
sure the long-term goal. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I do
At the point where you're
appreciate it.
selling about 10,000 a month, all the moving parts. You've got an image of or a vision of what this could be and where you could get with it. So yeah, well done. The journey from 0 to 10,000 a month in sales is the most difficult leap you make in this business. From 10 to 30 is so much easier. It's a matter of letting things go, like we're talking about, freeing
Yeah.
up your time and getting other people in place. And you'll be thinking to yourself constantly, why didn't I do this sooner? Kind of like with the virtual assistant. Like, wow, where would I be if I'd hired them a year sooner? Right. You just start to,
Yeah.
you
I
know, it's a series of those
and I
kinds of
really
decisions.
wish. Yeah, I really wish I had brought her on a little bit earlier. The other thing I waited forever on was a repricer.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept thinking it can't make that big of a difference. I finally did that within the last month, and it has made a huge difference as far as just like clearing out some inventory that, is sitting a little bit more. Some things, I think I'm getting a little bit higher return on it. And it's just not something I have to go through that tedious task of doing anymore.
Right.
So I wish I had done that a while back. I
Yeah.
probably could have done it 4 or 5 months ago and been fine, but I
That's the
waited.
leadership journey. It just a whole series of decisions where you're thinking, oh, I probably could have done that sooner. But the thing is, there'll always be that list of things that you're trying to get to help systematize and automate the business and scale it to the next level. There's always a list. So you're doing great. But yeah, it does feel like just it's a journey of letting go of responsibilities that you think I'm the one that can do this best. Nope, there's a tool. There's a $4 an hour worker in the Philippines. Right. There's
Yes.
a neighbor across the street who would love to do it. I mean,
Yes.
I've even heard stories of people like, oh, I'm just looking for something to keep me busy. Ah, yeah, pay me if you want to. That's great. But I like just staying busy, right? There's people like that. I guarantee within 50 yards of your house right now, they'll be like, yeah, it's meaningful work, spare hours. Absolutely. Sign me up. What I get paid, I don't care. Just love to
Okay,
get to
great.
know you. I've always thought you guys had a cool family. Those kind of people are all around you. So tap into that network.
Okay. I will
Excellent.
for sure.
Yeah. So how are you finding your inventory? Let's talk through that maybe a little bit. I'm just curious what you sell? Maybe give us some examples of some of the items you've sold and how you found them.
So all different ways, but I am using tactical arbitrage a little bit more now. I used it a little bit in the past and then kind of got away from that. But I do use that. Like I said, I also go into stores and I'll take pictures of what's on the shelves and then come home and I just go through it and see if it's something that is profitable, something that will sell. Um, Look for those like sales flyers too when they come in, or sometimes I'll send that to my VA. Hey, this place is running a sale today if you want to go through it, and let me know if you find anything.
That's
And
great. So there's local, regional, maybe even stores, your VA. I love to see people using their VA this way. And it's a partnership. You're not just waiting on them to go find and do the work and do the heavy lifting. Saying, hey, here's the stores near me. Here's some regional stores that are kind of only in our part of the country. Here's a flyer from that store. Go through this and see what you can find. I love that. And before we go too far, you mentioned tactical arbitrage. Some of our listeners might not know what that is. TA. We'll stick a link in the show notes. We have a course, the OA Simplified course. Have you gone through that?
I'm in the process of it right now.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that really teaches you how to use that as a replens hunting tool. And oasimplified.com is the website. But as you know, Renee, it's included in the Proven Amazon course as one of the modules as well. So don't buy it separately. Just get the Proven Amazon course. But oasimplified.com. Yeah, we've got a couple great moms that put that course together for us. They're doing big numbers and they're heroes around here. You can go see their story on that website. But so you're starting to learn TA, you're doing some retail arbitrage, you're taking store pictures, you said, and coming home and doing research that way.
Yep. And I'll send that to my VA as well. And it's nice. Her and I have been very organized with things. We kind of look at what do we want to sell over this next quarter coming up. And, we meet frequently and go over those things. What are numbers looking like? What do we want to, adjust over these next upcoming months? So she's, like I said, it's really been a partnership. And it's been fantastic. So I can't say enough wonderful things about her. I just hope she never decides to go anywhere else.
Yeah, take good care of her, which isn't hard to do, where the dollar bill spends like about $8 in the Philippines. So you can be a really big blessing to somebody just by sending them a few dollars, and you can really impact their family. And we see families, we see virtual assistants supporting families of 4 or 5 people on $4 or $5, $6 an hour job. It's just incredible because you got to multiply those numbers by, 6, 7, 8x to come up with what it's worth in the local economy. So yeah, it's a pretty special relationship we see developing. We love seeing that happen with virtual assistants and our replen sellers in our community. Hundreds of people are doing exactly what you are. Hey, we'll get back to the show in just a second, but I've got to tell you about a great sponsor who's just joined us. I'm talking about Seller Board. This is a very popular service used by many Amazon sellers in our community because they understand how important it is, how crucial it is to know your numbers. How do you know how profitable you are? All those fees, the different expenses, the cost of goods sold. How do you track it all? Seller Board is phenomenal. Starting as low as just $15 a month with a 2-month trial on top of that. You really need to check these guys out. Get over to silentjim.com/numbers. Again, silentjim.com/numbers. It's time to know your numbers. It's an accurate profit analytics software tool just for Amazon sellers. They've been doing this since 2017. It is a really cool tool doing some things that I'm unaware of anyone else doing. So the pricing starts at $15. Like I said, get your 2-month trial at silentjim.com/numbers. So yeah, it's a pretty special relationship we see developing. We love seeing that happen with virtual assistants and our replen sellers in our community. Hundreds of people are doing exactly what you are. But well, that's great. Well, what else do you want to dive into here? What else you got on your mind?
I will just say, thinking of everything and like kind of the process I've been through, and it's been over quite a bit of time. But I also don't know where I would have been without coaching. I actually kind of started that before I even logged into the PAC course, but it's been just amazing to have someone who sits with you and Larry would just, every time I had a question, it's like, I don't know what he was doing all day. And I know he's a busy guy, but he would always get back to me. He's responding, and he is just the nicest person. I mean, it really was just such a wonderful experience for me. And I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting him for the Proven Amazon conference, because we've never met in person. It's all been virtually so far.
That's so
So I
cool. So
really
you're
hope
coming
that I get to meet him.
in July, coming to Ohio?
That's the plan. And I talked with my husband, trying to twist his arm and get him to come too, even though he doesn't really, I mean, he helps me with, sometimes taping boxes or
Sure.
taking things to UPS, but really
Yeah.
it's,
Well, I've got to
me.
tell you about a session that my wife does, and it's a very popular session. I don't know if you've caught word of it yet or not, but it's for the spouses of the crazy entrepreneurs, is what they kind of call it, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's sometimes entrepreneurs are married to entrepreneurs and they do the business together. Other times, like with my wife and I, or it sounds like kind of with you and your husband, they support us. Of course, they're our biggest cheerleader, which is one of my wife's favorite words for how they should treat their entrepreneurial spouse. We were actually just joking a few days ago. I heard a guy say, when your entrepreneurial spouse comes to you with another idea, they've always got more ideas. You don't say, how? You say, wow. That's all you got to say. That's all they need. Just be impressed, enjoy the moment. They'll probably not do anything with it eventually anyway. He said he was just kind of joking around. But, just she does a great session a couple times for the spouses and it's a free session as well. So he doesn't have to register or get a ticket. If he wants to sit in the other sessions, he would, but for hers, it's completely free. Anyone can walk in. And a lot of times that's the session that the spouses will attend and just have a
Okay.
good old time making fun of the crazy entrepreneurs in there together. But
Well, he
please
is such
come
an
for that.
entrepreneur himself. He's started businesses since he was a teenager and
Wow. Okay. So that's cool. Just not in this business.
just not this business. Yes. So
Gotcha.
he is very, when I'm the one going, I don't know what to do about this moving forward. He's organized, he's right there. He's kind of coaching me through what I need to do. So it's really nice to have him. Yeah, he's been
That's
great.
awesome. Well, at least I got a commercial in for my wife's session, and he would still probably enjoy it because there
I'm
is a lot of
sure.
unique, e-commerce entrepreneurs have some unique challenges, but really a business is a business. It
Yeah.
really is. It's a matter of turning $5 bills into $10 bills while creating happy customers along the way. I mean, that's what business is. And so similar challenges regardless. What businesses is he in? I'm curious.
He's had a lot that he's, sold in the past. And so his most recent company was with involving technology, virtual reality. And that was the last one that he sold. And now he's still working in a tech company. But he's, not as much of the pressure is on him anymore. He used to always kind
Mm.
of wear the leadership hat of everything. And so now he's sharing that responsibility a little bit more, which has been nice.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where are you guys from? Did you mention yet?
We're in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix. Okay, very good. Yeah, so you won't be driving into the conference. That's a flight for
No,
sure to
I
Columbus.
really don't want to make that drive.
No, that's too much drive time. Yeah, well, looking forward to seeing you guys. And yeah, tell him he has to be there. He'll love it. If he likes hanging out with entrepreneurs, he's going to absolutely love this
Yes,
event.
yes. I think he would enjoy it for sure.
Outstanding. Well, so you valued coaching, and yeah, thanks for giving a shout out. Larry and Sue have become two of the great coaching leaders actually in our community at this point. They still do a fair amount of coaching as well, but yeah, they've been with us for quite some time, and probably a couple of the more seasoned coaching leaders on our team at this point. So you've had a great experience with that. I appreciate you giving them a
Uh,
shout out. Make sure they hear that. But
Yeah.
yeah, what else is on your mind? Anything else to cover? Or any questions for me, perhaps?
One question I would like to ask you is, as far as with keeping track of numbers, I
Mhm.
think that, there was a woman on named Susan, I believe, not too long ago, and she just seems like she has it so dialed in. But for me, I'm looking at different programs and kind of getting a good sense of where I'm at. But then it's so hard too with thinking about, okay, now what have I spent, coming up on this inventory that's coming to me, and just
Mhm.
keeping track of everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of any business is knowing your numbers. You can't really know if you're progressing or not unless you know your numbers. The tool that seems to be the most popular in our community right now that I think does a tremendous job, they're actually a sponsor of this program as well. But even if they weren't, I'd be talking about them because they do a great job. It's Seller Board at silentjimdotcom/numbers. You can see the conversation between the creator of Seller Board and myself. It's a couple of years old at this point, but still relevant. But they've got a special offer too for this group, and it's not that expensive. I think it starts at $15 or so a month, something like that. It's super inexpensive, but it really does a good job of capturing all the moving parts of what's really happening. So you can dial in and say, hey, is this ASIN one that I should be buying more of? Or am I actually losing money and it just feels good because I'm selling a lot of it, right? So you can really, on an ASIN level, make great decisions and see big picture, all Amazon's fees, the return charges, those little fees, you don't even know what they're all about. It's capturing all of those and giving you a super accurate picture. And the other thing I always say is you need a good accountant, small business accountant. If they specialize in e-commerce, that's great. But then there's a lot of options out there. I like working with someone local. I still use a local accountant, or find a bookkeeper even that can help take some of that weight off of you, just so you can really get a good monthly or quarterly report of what's my business doing. Let's paint a good, accurate picture. But the thing Seller Board helps you do is not only that, where you just kind of take those numbers and plug them into QuickBooks or whatever, but you can also make very granular decisions on a product by product basis. You can look at each ASIN. How's this one performing? Is it time to get in deeper on this one or get out of it? So it's become an invaluable tool for tracking numbers, making good inventory decisions, and other things as well. But that's the primary functions that so many in our community are using. That's really my best advice. Get a good accountant who can help you make sure that you really are looking at your numbers correctly, help you kind of audit yourself. And the other one is Seller Board. silentjim.com/numbers is the website.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. I mean, they give a nice, generous free trial, I think, at the beginning as well. So you can get in. I mean, it's one of those things where as soon as you turn it on, it just like kind of paints a picture for you because it gets access to your Amazon account, pulls all the numbers that it needs, and you see a bunch of stuff that you hadn't seen before pretty fast. It's not technically difficult to begin benefiting from the tool.
Awesome. Then I will definitely check it out
Yeah.
because I like looking at the numbers but the process is just, it's confusing
It's a
with
little
every
overwhelming.
moving parts.
Yeah, there's a lot going on for sure.
Yes.
They'll actually be at the conference as well, the Proven Conference. Seller Board
Great.
is going to have some people there. So if you start using it now and then you go see them in July, you have a good conversation, meet the folks behind the tool.
Awesome. That would be wonderful.
Great. What other questions, if anything else on your list?
I don't think there's any other specific questions that I have as of right now. And one other tip, I guess, or suggestion I just have for people is like that it's very easy to kind of get down, especially if you have a day where it's, low sales, or you get some kind of email that you don't want to get from Amazon. And, we all have rough days. But it's so important to just kind of stay close to the community, stay in touch with somebody. Like Larry has really been, I've emailed him a couple times and said like, this was a rough week. And, I let him know what's going on and
Sure.
talks me off a ledge. So
Yep.
it's just been nice to have, somebody or a community, even if you post in there, that people are really supportive and they're kind and they reach out and say positive things.
Yeah. And of course, you're talking about the Facebook group, right? Silentjim.com has a link to our Facebook group. There's about 72,000 members. If you're new around here, we'd love to invite you in. It's completely free. And it's a whole bunch of people who are doing this business, very supportive culture. And yeah, it's something, it's not quite that shoulder to cry on because it's strangers on the internet sometimes, but over time, we've seen people form very real, like even local communities, and they're meeting together and forming masterminds and getting together and having their own little retreats and things. It's quite a phenomenal community to kind of launch off of and find your people within.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to even just go back and kind of like look sometimes if you search for something specific and see, oh, that person had this issue, I'm having that too. And what did they do to solve it? Or so there's just a lot of useful information in there. And it's just good to kind of like stay near the campfire, make sure that you are locked in with other people and that you're, keeping things moving and keeping it going. Because if you really just let some of those days take over, then it's really easy just to stop, You
can get disheartened pretty fast doing anything on your own, let alone a business. There's constant little challenges and struggles of any business. You've got to have, I say it all the time, but one of my favorite quotes, it's an ancient African proverb, as well as the first place I ever heard it was one of my favorite coaches, John Wooden, who said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, take a team. If you want to last, take a team, right? So business it's an endurance sport. It's slow and
Yes.
steady wins the race. Relationships will be required to go far. And
For
so you're
sure.
giving some great, I love the imagery of the campfire. Stay close to the campfire. That's such a great image. Do you have a mastermind yet? Some other sellers that you meet with outside of the coaching, and anything like that happened for you yet?
No, I don't. A few people that I've just kind of talked to, I think in the Facebook community here and there. But
Mhm.
I think after going to, the seminar this summer, that then I'm sure I'll meet more people. And Larry's really kind of been that campfire for me so far. So
Yeah,
sorry, Larry.
exactly. No, well, if you're going to have some campfire, some good shoulders to lean on, Larry and Sue, certainly two fantastic people to put on that list. But I'd like to encourage you and anyone else. One of the things that we're going to be doing at the conference very intentionally this year for our VIP guests is forming mastermind groups. We're going to send you a survey before the event, kind of get you teamed up with people that make sense. And so we're going to form you into groups, and that group will meet at the conference. You'll all be in the same room together, but you'll all kind of be bundled into our little groups, right? And then we'll give instructions on how to make sure that this thing gets established and continues with some momentum from the event. So that's one of the side benefits we'll have at the conference this year, for sure. So yeah, if you don't have a mastermind by then, you'll certainly have one after the event, because that just becomes an invaluable thing. And we've seen the way those kind of grow is they start off talking about Amazon, but they quickly change into life and family and just the reality of having a business under the same roof with your spouse, and you know all kinds of interesting ideas emerging, and new business ideas, even new concepts emerge. It's fascinating to watch it all develop. So I strongly encourage everyone that, the more relationships, the better. I know people who are in 3 or 4 different masterminds, just they benefit so tremendously from them. And it's hard. You'll struggle without having those relationships. So I appreciate it. And I
For
love the
sure.
campfire analogy. I might steal that one from you.
Course.
Thank
Do
you.
it. And speaking of quotes, that does make me think of one quote. And I apologize, I can't remember who it came from. I know I heard it on another podcast one day, and they talk about how to ride your highs a little lower and your lows a little higher. And I
Mm,
think that's so helpful to remember. Like, yeah, it's good to celebrate those things, and we all have days that aren't great. But if you kind of think about just, okay, that happened, and, pick yourself up and move on. Or if it's a really great
mhm.
day, bring it down a little bit. You're a little bit more
Yep.
even than throughout, and it
I
doesn't seem
love that. That's
quite so
so
bad.
good. And yeah, I hadn't heard that exact phraseology before. One of the things I have become fond of saying after doing e-commerce for 20 years, and kind of seeing it is a series of highs and lows, and we can let in any one day really impact us more than it probably should in both directions. But some of the advice that I've given folks over the year, including my own kids, 2 of which have running their own very active, successful businesses, and I see this, especially when you're young. When you have a good day, you tend to make big plans and make big promises, right? Like, don't do that. A good day is not the day to make new plans and make big promises, right? Tamp it down. And a bad day is not the day to change directions or cancel any plans.
Mhm.
You don't do that on a bad day, right? So, because we can tend to just feel good and make a bunch of promises to a bunch of people. And then tomorrow's a bad day. You're like, what did I do? What was I thinking? You cancel it all on a bad day. It's just this, you make the roller coaster even worse for yourself.
Yep,
Yeah,
of
great
course.
advice. Yeah, I'd like to see people take a snapshot of like a week at a time or a month at a time. And like, let's watch the whole movie instead of right now refreshing my screen. No sales in the last hour. That means I'm depressed. Refresh my screen again. Ooh, $100 worth of sales. I'm happy now. I mean, that's a brutal ride to put your spouse through too. That
Yes.
roller coaster of the day. So
Yes, for sure.
great advice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what else? Anything else on your list or anything else to go over? I think this has been a very beneficial episode for a lot of folks.
Uh, I don't think there's anything else that I have. Just one other thing with people, like if you're wanting to start selling on Amazon, like if it's for someone who's new, even if you're working full time, it just thinking about putting in those extra hours and where you can squeeze them in, I think is just helpful. Um, because sometimes people look at it as like, oh, I never have enough time. But like, if you have time, sometimes to watch TV or, I carve out some time, spending time with friends. I have to do that, often to kind of make things work. But I still have a balance of everything, and I know when it's time to put everything down and walk away from it. And so I think that's, just important of like, it does take the extra work, but if you feel like you can just find a little bit of time somewhere to squeeze it in, then give it a try. It's nothing that's, you're not going to like break anything from, trying out something new. So
Yeah, great tips. I love when sellers who are new in their journey start to be the ones dropping great challenging tips, because it's easy. Like, yeah, but you've been doing that 20 years, Jim, and you're saying all these cliche things. No, like here's Renee. She hasn't been doing it that long. She's at a $10,000-$12,000 a month, and she's scaling and she's doing some significant things here. You've learned some very, very valuable lessons. And the one you just hit on is it's going to take some discipline. That's what I just heard you say. You're going to have to maybe put down some of those habits and hobbies, use kind of those default settings like, well, I never do anything after 6, so we're just going to have to figure this out. Like, well, no, you might have to change that. You might have to do something at 7 or 8 p.m. at night if you've got a busy schedule, but it's worth that period of intense focused effort where you kind of shake up your life a little.
Mm-hmm.
The payoff is just so significant. I love that phraseology, intense focused effort. Anything worth doing is going to have that initial phase of just like, wow, this is more of a grind than I thought. But if you can just get through that, this really is working for a whole lot of people. And you did it brilliantly, Renee. Thank you for that. Good job.
Oh, of course.
Well, I think this is a good stopping point. We've learned a lot about you, and we've learned that you guys make your husband come. He's got to come. You're going to have a lot of people wanting to talk to you and approach you, especially with the timing of this episode coming out just a couple months before. So you're going to be one of the celebrities at the event. I have a feeling, and no problem at all launching a mastermind group, with the people having a conversation. And that's one of the benefits of coming on the show. So maybe that's one of the things I'd like to say to the listeners right now. If you're watching this and you're thinking, wow, I've kind of got a story as well about like Renee's, you've built some momentum, you've learned from the Proven Amazon course, you're seeing some results, you want to have a conversation with me or with one of the other hosts, let's do it. Let's get you on here. Just drop us a line. Get over to silentjimdotcom, send us a line, tell us a bit of your story. We'll get you out here like Renee did today and chat through. And one of the things that always happens, and Renee, I'll kind of give you a little heads up, especially since we're using your full name and face and people will be able to see who you are. You're going to have people reaching out to you and saying, hey, you know what? Let's chat. Let's get a mastermind going. Here's some ideas. I'd love to meet up with you. Hey, we live near Phoenix. You're going to get a lot of that. So don't feel obligated to answer all of it, because we do get quite a few listeners to this program, but some of those people are going to jump off the page at you and be some potential new relationships for you. So that's one of the benefits of being on the show for sure. But, well, you did a great job tonight, Renee. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we wrap this one up, hey, appreciate you too. I'm just going to talk to the listeners for just a moment. Thanks for joining Renee and I. We had a great time. Hopefully you enjoyed being along for the ride today as well, as we dove into Renee's business and some of the challenges she's had. And we've got hundreds of episodes like this. If you weren't aware, this is one of the first episodes you've heard. If you scroll back in time, you're going to hear dozens in the past few months and hundreds over the past year plus of people like Renee who have jumped into the Proven Amazon course, built the business of their dreams, maybe jumped into coaching as well. And we don't sugarcoat anything. We have all kinds of different levels of success, all different levels of people who just started versus people who have maybe 6-figure plus per month businesses. You're going to hear it all. So please listen to 15 or 20 episodes before you decide if this show's for you. But we're so glad you joined us today. God bless all the business building warriors out there. And on behalf of the whole team that puts this show together, we will have another great one for you very soon. Thanks for joining us today. We'll talk to you then. Hey, thanks for hanging out today. Before I let you go, one short reminder. We are so grateful to our new sponsor to this program, Seller Board. If you haven't checked them out yet, get over to silentjimdotcom/numbers. This is the software that tells you if you're profitable or not. It helps you track all of your expenses, your KPIs, sales, refunds, advertising costs, all of it. Profit, loss. This is tremendous software that fills a gap in the marketplace. Many successful sellers in our community are using this tool to help them know which of their products are profitable and which ones aren't. You'll love Seller Board. For just $15 a month starting, you can really dial in and know how your business is doing. silentjim.com/numbers. Talk to you next time.